Hello, and welcome to the Raising Sage Spiritual Podcast, where we delve into the transformative power of spirituality and personal growth. I'm your host, Jess, and tonight my guest is Sunni Leilani, one of my sisters. How are you doing?
Very good, Jess. Thank you so much for asking. How are you?
Good. Thank you so much for joining me.
Oh, it's my pleasure.
So for anyone who's not familiar, with you and your work, maybe you could tell us a bit about yourself, little background, any specific areas of expertise, anything you feel called to share.
Absolutely. I like to imagine myself as a traveling poet that puts her prose into melody and sound and movement. I have been, let's see, crafting songs since I was a little girl singing in my head and at the age of 22, out of like a real dire need, I started to practice playing the guitar. And upon that, I was able to put those poems to movement, sound, and to, I would say, like prayer. Many years later, I realized they were prayer songs. And so I'd say that my expertise truly is just being an advocate for self, for believing in self, using sound, and believing in self and sound as a way to connect with your own unique, authentic voice that I believe is it's the true medicine of the future. And I was born in a little town called Monticello, New York, which is, I'm trying to remember, it's land of the Lenni Lenape, the Mohawk, a variety of like northern Indian tribes, Iroquois, El, I believe Algonquin, and then from the little town of Monticello, New York, traveled quite a bit with my mom, following my father. My mom and dad were never married, but they were having relations, and the youngest of six children, not all from my father, my birth father. But from there, we settled in a little town called Manahawkin, New Jersey, and that's land of Lenape and Delaware Indians. And from there, I just really started my love affair with the ocean. And I feel that water, specifically the ocean, has really shaped my co-creative journey that I've been on since the age of 22, when I started to really hone in on my gift from Great Spirit to just connect with my own voice and be my own medicine. Yeah.
Beautiful.
Yeah. Thank you.
Such a beautiful way of expressing yourself. I love it.
Thank you, Jess.
How like how did your spiritual journey kind of begin? So, um, obviously you've always been super creative, expressive.
Yes, that's a great question. I know that a lot of my impressions now are from hindsight, but if I can really, when I really focus in on that question, there are a few key moments that I remember. And one of them is I used to ask my mom when I was a little girl, why wasn't I born blue? And why didn't I have red hair? And my mom was like, and why wasn't my name Rhonda? And my mom used to say, well, listen, you can change your name when you're older, you can dye your hair red, but I can't help you with the blue skin. And I actually have changed my name a number of times, and it's a beautiful thing because I also feel that the name the name changing or the gifting of spirit names has been an evolution of sorts. So I was born Tanya Marie Limosnero, And the first gifted name that I had gifted to me was from a Mattapanai elder, a tribe in the Virginia area. There's the Mattapanai and the Pamunkey, and they're in Virginia. And I was dating a fella that was part Mattapanai, Samoan, and like a German mixture. And I had just, maybe I'd only been playing the guitar for about 5 years at the time. And I played a song for Jack, the elder, and it was called Gather Round. It's a song called Gather Round. And he just said that I had the heart of a turtle. So he called me Turtle Heart. So that was my first gifted spirit name. So, I mean, that's many years later, but I always had this connection to a couple totem animals that I would draw as a young girl. I would draw a parrot always and whale. I remember I was in like a first grade. I was a safety, so I had that little belt, and like there was this little contest to draw a poster, and I was like swim with a buddy, and it was two whales. So I would draw whales and parrots, and by the time I was in maybe eighth grade, I was reading and writing poetry and then singing those songs in my head. So I was always taking things into like a co-creative process. And I'd say that those were my first, in hindsight, ways that I definitely was connecting to my spiritual journey. Then the second name gifting, I was a road maven with a jazz artist, Melody Gardot, for like about 10 years. And we had a German bus driver named Thomas. And I would always be the first one up and like, aside from Melody, probably the last to sleep. And I would always spend those last wake hours with Thomas, like in the front of the bus as he was driving away from wherever we were finishing up our show. And every morning he would say, "Good morning, sunshine." And when a
Mhm.
6'4" German man calls you sunshine, you either like it, love it, or you don't. And I loved it. So he started to call me sunshine, then sunny. And then on another trek of my spiritual journey, I had been to Standing Rock and I had met an elder, Earl de Leon, Kanaka, Maoli elder, Hawaiian, beautiful Hawaiian man. And he said if I ever was on the Big Island to come and stay with him and his family. And I did. And they gifted me Leilani. And they dropped the Y and spelt it with an I. And that's how I have my spiritual name, Sunni Leilani. So I feel like my spiritual journey has always been interwoven in everything that I've ever done.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow. Journey of self.
Yes, journey of self. Absolutely.
Yeah. Mm. Shivers, goosebumps. So those are obviously some significant experiences, and events. Um, Let me see. How would you say maybe your travels, ceremonies, times, in indigenous communities, how has it kind of influenced your understanding of spirituality?
Wow, I love that question. And I thought on that one. And I was like, how will I answer? But then I was like, wait a second. You you know how to answer because you've lived it. I'd say my first most important, significant time where I really, besides being, we're all indigenous, yes, and we're all misplaced and pushed to the margins on this planet. We're all indigenous to this earth or even other star nations or places. But on Earth, this beautiful Earth Mother that we're on, we all are indigenous to the land. And the land is us and we are the land, yeah? And I feel like that right there gives me a knowing. But then more specifically, being my mom's side of the family, there is the three affiliated tribes, Hidatsa, Irikara, and the Mandan. I was kind of not raised with any of my traditions. Then also my father's Filipino. I wasn't raised with any of my ancestral traditions. I kind of like, I feel like I've been a misfit raised on Turtle Island, and which is another name to kind of like an indigenous name of this North American continent from your parts, the upper half of Canada, and then the United States, and then Central America, Mexico. I I feel like I've always had this inner knowing, but when I went to Standing Rock, it was, I mean, by the time it's Standing Rock, for those who don't know, I'm sure most people do know, it was a gathering of over 500 indigenous nations in the heart of Turtle Island in standing on the Standing Rock Sioux tribe in North Dakota. And they were communing there to stop a pipeline from being built, rerouted through, it was supposed to be built originally in Bismarck, but of course the people of Bismarck said, no, a pipeline will not come through these parts, coming from a tar sands pipeline coming from Canada, funded by Enbridge, a Canadian company. So they decided to route it through the ancestral burial grounds of the Standing Rock Sioux tribe. And at the time, the Standing Rock was sparked by the youth of the Standing Rock Sioux tribe. They had just, they had had enough. They were seeing their peers dying from suicide, from drugs, from poverty, and now like their ancestors were going to be dug up from their burial sites, and they just said no. So they took a run. They ran to Iowa, to the Enbridge headquarters there. They were refused to be seen. Then they continued on to Washington, D.C. to meet with Barack Obama, who had actually been to their tribe and had promised them, that he would be on their side, and of course he garnered a lot of votes for his presidency by, being in solidarity with them. Mm-hmm. And lo and behold, they weren't seen there in DC, but they ran back home. And by the time they got home, they had inspired so many people that there was now like 50 tents, 50 teepees on LaDonna Brave Bulls, Allard Brave Bulls land, which was the name is escaping me right now. There was a few camps. It'll come to me. But so from 50 teepees to tents, by the height of Standing Rock, there was like 15,000 to 50,000 people that would come and go over a span of like a year, standing to protect the waters of the Missouri River and the Cannonball River. And of course, all rivers and all waters.
Yeah.
So there, Jess, I pretty much rose with circle, honored the four directions, honored all the nations, peoples, cooked food, did dishes. Like one time, like I was like doing dishes from like 12 a.m. At night till 12 p.m. in the next day. Yeah, just like living in service and community as if we were like it. I mean, at the height of Standing Rock, it could have gotten its own zip code, right? That's the postal code. Yeah, zip code, postal code. It was like
Yeah.
it was like the third largest city in North Dakota at the time. So
Wow.
that experience shaped all of that's where Myron Dewey, who is passed and deceased now, Shoshone Paiute elder, seeing through indigenous eyes, digital smoke signals. He was a journalist, a teacher. He shot drone footage. He basically said, Sonny, Alphonse is not singing, he's praying. And every song is a prayer. This is a prayer camp. So that just colored everything. So from 2016, 17 on, everything was the music was definitely a prayer.
Mm.
So I hope that answers the question. It was a long
Yes.
roundabout
Oh my
answer.
goodness. Yes. That was amazing. I love that's like what it's all about, just sharing your experiences and how they shaped you and got you to where you are. And
Yeah.
yeah, my goodness. Um, what spiritual, or creative kind of gifts do you feel most connected to maybe? And obviously you use music in your everyday life. And you've already said that, your art is a form of prayer, or offering, but maybe maybe you could talk more about your creative process or, how you write, or does it come from your poetry and then you turn it into song kind of thing? Is there a channeling aspect or yeah, maybe more about that.
Great questions. Well, let's see. So I am self-taught, like
Cool.
self-taught guitar, self-taught singing, and so definitely it is channel. It's not like
Mhm.
I'm not saying it's always from Great Spirit. I definitely think it's a channel from deep down inside, like from self. It's like
Yeah.
from my eternal being. What's really
Mhm.
interesting is when I started to play guitar, I was going through a very, very painful time. My first, I'll just skim over it to illustrate how sometimes the song or the process comes or the poem comes,
Mhm. Yeah,
because
of
it
course.
doesn't always have to come from pain. But I'm my nature, my deep nature is very melancholy. It's hard to believe that, but it's a choice. Like to put my best foot forward and to bring my smile out into the world, it's a choice because my true nature is quite melancholy. It's very reflective. I
Mm.
think one of my other skills for the songwriting has been listening. I love to listen. I love to listen to people speak around me, my elders speak, and observe. And I think that informs my eternal being. I don't call it my higher self, I call it my eternal being.
Mm, I like that.
So when I was in this really sad state, my first partner and my biggest sister had an 8-month affair when I was just turning 22.
Oh my goodness.
So that pain allowed me to take up the guitar and finally have the patience. But during that time, I was suicidal. And I wanted to share this specifically with you because I know that you're like raising sage spiritual, you're very focused on wellness of the body, right? So I feel like a lot of my wellness had been just a rejection of my body,
Mm.
being connected to pain. It's not like I didn't love myself, but I was like I rejected the body because like I had an estranged relationship with my father. There was little things like then having this betrayal from my sister and my first partner, man
Yeah.
and woman. Like I just like didn't validate my existence just being on Earth Mother, right? So
Yeah.
so for many moons I felt like pain had to inform my songwriting. And it did, but there was also great moments of joy,
Mm.
curiosity that inspired the music. But in 2020, after Standing Rock and after being like on the road for 10 years with Melody, I knew that I had to go on the road and just play my music. I was struggling to get gigs because I don't have a following and I'm just not your conventional musician, right?
Yeah.
But I just did it anyway. And then, of course, I was just playing wherever anybody would give me a gig. I was playing in a park. And then I set up a concert, Jess, across the United States, and it all canceled because of COVID, but I went on it anyway.
Oh.
So I bring this up because I am a DI, I do it yourself.
Mhm.
I do it myself, gig or no gig. I play in hotel rooms. For 3 years, I did a solid Thursday night with the Radio K Foundation, which is a foundation that brings music and poetry and art to folks with brain damage, with autism, um, folks suffering from seizures. And I did this with Nicholas S. Siegel for solid 3 years every Thursday. And I promised myself that when I did these live performances online through COVID, that I would make sure that there was a moment where I didn't sing or say anything that I've ever said before. So channeling in the moment. So songs would come like just from a thought or a phrase, and I would just let myself play through it. And then I would pull those performances up and pull out those new songs. So the songwriting
Wow.
process is very inspired by movement, by all types of emotion, by no longer just pain or suffering, but from
Yeah.
joy and celebrating other people's joys, folks' stories, my indigenous brothers and sisters stories, our sisterhood stories, like,
Yeah.
so it's sometimes it'll come via a poem. Sometimes it'll come instantly with music on my guitar. Other times, like I can spend a couple weeks working out a melody, and I can tinker on the piano a little bit, but then I usually transpose everything onto my guitar.
Oh, amazing. Amazing to get like the little inside view. I love
Thank you
it.
for your interest.
Yeah. I love just hearing about people's passions and
I know
yeah.
in your podcast, you're hearing so many people's stories
Yeah.
and connected to their spiritual journey,
Hmm.
because it is about the spirit. And it's
Yeah.
how our spirits connect with other spirits in resonance, in frequency, and energy and vibration.
Yeah. Yeah. And everyone's path is their own. Like that. One of the main messages for
And
sure.
everyone's path is their own. Exactly. Beautiful, beautiful thread. Because
Yeah.
without that, we are not living our highest or our eternal potential.
Yeah.
And I
Agreed.
feel with art and co-creating and music and sound, it's very important that anyone that listens to this podcast as your guest tonight, that they understand that your voice is your own. It is not our co-creative gifts are not meant to be. Yes, we like to be inspired by others so we can grow and learn. But
Hmm.
we must remember our voice is our own. And
Yeah.
it is that original voice that is your key to the universe, to the cosmos. And
Yeah.
let it out when you can at
Yeah.
on your time. But it doesn't need to sound like anyone else's voice. The magic of it is it's yours, and you need to hear your own voice vibrate through your own body.
Hmm.
That's what I
Yeah.
would want to share with anyone that would listen to any little word I might have to say, or advice, or inspiration.
Yeah.
You
And
can
it's
sing.
yes.
Not you just, the listener, you can sing.
Yeah.
Instead of like, just say, next time you say hello to your mom, instead of saying, hi, mom, say, hi, mom. That's how easy it is.
Mhm. Sage's getting excited. No, no. Okay, go ahead. After, okay. Um,
We're almost done, Sage.
oh, you're making the air pillar proud.
Oh,
That was such an air pillar message.
it was, yeah. And I knew that air pillar would be a pillar for me, because even though I do this co-creating or this work, I felt like there's a challenge to air, and the challenge is to stay grounded in self and believe in yourself always, and to
Yes.
find the moment where you start living life following your dream. So air
Hmm.
is air is tricky. So I needed to practice it myself, right?
Yeah.
You would think, oh, she can,
Really.
because she speaks. No, it's a practice. And so
Yeah.
air is like, it's as easy as breathing, right? And we
Mm.
often forget that breath, like our body does it for us.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Beautiful. Speaking of practices, what are maybe some spiritual or mindfulness practices that help you stay grounded? Do you have any specific rituals or ceremonies or moments of daily life hold deep meaning for you?
Yeah. I practiced Buddhism when I was in my early 20s, and I feel that I'm not chanting Nam-myoho Renge Kyo any longer. I was a Nichiren Daishonin. I was part of the Soka Gakkai, and I I I don't continue to chant, but I feel like some of the early practices of Buddhism stay with me. I usually let myself rise in silence when I do wake, and I don't have any particular hours. A lot of times I can rise, like I'll rise early, sometimes I'll rise at noon. But I feel like part of my practices are quiet time. I have a lot of quiet time on my own. I go out into nature. I love to walk dogs and spend time with animals. I, yeah, I feel like it's like when I am in performance, I always sound my bell. I have a sound bell. It helps me just bring all spirit, like
Mm.
beneficial, beautiful spirit to me. And I ring my bell all through. I ring the bell all the time. And meditating, I it's not necessarily a meditation, but it is like a meditation because I have a hard, sometimes I do have a hard time sitting still. I get a lot of inspiration from movement. But so
Mhm.
any, I just make everything a meditation. Like if I'm doing the dishes, I'll be mindfulness in that. I, like, I like to think before I speak.
Mhm.
That kind of mindfulness, I think, is definitely a practice. And it's like being like not hyper vigilant or anything like this, but just really present, like in the
Yeah.
now. I think that's my biggest practice is being present in the now because sometimes I can be flittering off into the future. So I say, okay, bring it back, Sunny, because I am
Yeah.
planning. I have like 6 calendars going all the time. But and now I've been practicing the Zolkin and the 13 moon calendar. So now I'm like phasing out of the Gregorian calendar into the 13 moons calendar. So everything becomes like a meditative practice, but not necessarily sitting in meditation going, oh, like
Yeah.
like this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Totally. Comes in many forms.
Many forms, yeah.
What would you say is the biggest challenge maybe that you faced on your spiritual path?
I think putting myself in my own equation. Because I think the spiritual path for me was when I finally decided to take all my experiences, all the odd jobs that I had, all the like solid, 2 jobs I had for 10, like a decade, 2 10-year jobs. I worked as a bartender slash server, music promoter at a jazz club for off and on for 11 years. And then I worked on the road for about a decade. And and then odd jobs, out of all that time, it was always a spiritual journey, but it became true spiritual journey when I put myself in the equation.
Mm.
That's like, and for me, you might not think that that's spiritual, but it is like really, truly, for me, it was the most important piece of the puzzle. So
Yeah.
my biggest challenge was remembering that I have a spiritual mission or a spiritual adventure or a spiritual
Mhm.
journey to go on, and I have to put myself in the equation, or you don't go
Yeah.
anywhere. So that was yeah, that was the challenge. And you know how easy it is to slip up from that.
Yeah.
I mean, I was just talking to one of our sisters, Leanne, um, about like when sometimes just like sometimes I like to stay quiet about my dreams and visions, not because I don't trust, but because very easily we can slip out of resonance with our own belief in magic
Mhm.
because we might be around our mom or our sister. I love my sister Maria, my birth sister, but when I start talking to like stuff about
Yeah.
magic, she's like, she's like really grounded on the earth, and yeah, which is a great thing.
Yeah.
But magic is like not in her wheelhouse yet. So,
Yeah.
and if I go too far with her, I slip out of my belief in magic, and it's
Yeah.
subtle, but it can really throw you for a loop. And
Hmm.
because it's kind of like when you are working on your spiritual hygiene, you have to
Hmm.
it's a very curtailed, sensitive, delicate thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Let me see.
Mm.
We've kind of talked about this. Do you see your art and music as a way of teaching or transmitting spiritual knowledge? I think if I think if you're a channel, like then that is what's happening essentially, even
Yeah.
if not on a conscious level.
Yes, I
What
think
do you think?
that's a good question because um, if someone, for instance, if someone were to come and see a performance, it's very, I ponder on this a lot because there's a lot of times where, if I didn't sound my bell at the top of my set, people might not, they might miss out on what my unique, what I've created, co-created. I say created and then I say co-created, but I'm I feel like I'm really seem to always feel like everything is a co-creation.
Yeah.
So sometimes I'm practicing on dropping the creating. It's a process because it's an ongoing process. But I
Well,
feel
what you mean when you say it is really co-creation. So,
yes,
yeah.
it's another subtle thing because I'm like, yeah, Sonny, you created it, but you really didn't. You co-created because you're not alone ever in the universe,
Yeah.
in the cosmos. So if someone would come and maybe just kind of witness what I'm doing, because it's not entertainment, and it can be, but it's not because I'm calling in the elements always. I'm always calling in the elements, and I think that's again like how you asked that question, like how do indigenous being around indigenous peoples and their practices, like how does it shape everything? Well, I'm calling in the elements 24/7,
Yeah.
especially if I'm have a performance coming, and I'm praying for more. I've like this span of decades. I'm still like trying to build my performance. I mean, I'm building it, but just getting out there and playing more on the
Mhm.
regular. I would say that if someone did come and to witness me, if I didn't ring the bell, they might miss it because once I hit that bell, Jess, let me tell you, like people will be like, "What is that?" And it's not
Yeah.
a good thing. We have many people ringing bells. I mean, like look at all the beautiful festivals where like we have Simrit and we have all these beautiful artists that are playing their ringing the bells, gongs, everything. But like,
Mhm.
most of the time I'm in a place where maybe they haven't had a performer that's a spirit, because I call myself spiritual folk rock. A lot of people, when they hear the music, they'll be like, you're like rock and roll and you're ringing a bell at the top of your set. I'm like, yeah, because that's how I center myself and call in the beneficial, beautifying spirits to be with me, the elementals. It's how I co-create a better world. So I
Mhm.
think folks will be able to definitely learn, and not by me telling them something, by them witnessing me just
Yeah.
do what I want to do.
Yeah.
That gets me
And then,
excited.
yeah.
We just did what we wanted to do, each and every one of us, and you do this. Anyone that would spend time to witness and watch us, they're going to learn without us even speaking to them.
Yeah.
And I
Mhm.
think that is like, it's like teaching by example.
Yeah. Absolutely. Ooh, powerful. Um, what guidance would you give to someone who's maybe just starting out their spiritual journey or their creative journey? Well, we know those are intricately linked. But
What would I say?
yeah,
I would say,
any
wow.
lessons or truths maybe that you would share with them?
Yeah, I would look them in the eye and I would say, wow, look at you. I would be like, you are one of a kind. And you're like, you're here. And I know that you're going through ups and downs because I always say this because a lot of times I I'm sensitive to the fact that someone might need to hear like a positive, but I also know that they might want their darkness to be acknowledged. So I never start, I mean, when I come across someone that maybe I feel they might want to hear something from me, first off, I always have to, not always, but like I'd say 70% of the time, Jess, I have a lot of like kids give me the side eye, like, how can you tell me what to do? Because like I went to a water protectors camp after George Floyd. I was after the murder of George Floyd and what
Mhm.
happened in Minneapolis. I happened to be heading to Palisade, Minnesota, to the water protectors Mississippi House. At the headwaters to protect the Mississippi River this time. And a lot of the young kids had lots of, and I get it, why? They had chips on their shoulder, right? And they were like, they didn't quite know what my age was. And because I laugh and I, buddy with the kids, a lot of them were upset that I couldn't remember their pronouns, but I remember their names like every single day on the mark. But then I'd say, she needs that. And they would be like, and they'd give me that. And I'd be like, you guys have to understand, I'm old enough to be your grandma.
You just have such a youthful energy.
I have a youthful energy. So they're like, so anytime I'm like kind of giving advice, they're like, who are you to give me advice? Like they think I'm like, I'm not 24, I'm
Yeah.
54. And they'd be like, no way. So I always have to kind of like, I'm always kind of like, not, I'm careful. So, but
Hmm.
when someone's looking at me and they're like saying, Sonny, I want some wisdom,
Yeah.
I usually just tell them, you are a badass and I know you're going through some shit. But you can do anything your heart desires. Excuse me, Sage, for the curse, but you can do anything your heart desires on
I
your
love
spiritual
it.
journey. Remember, you're an eternal being. You've been here. You've been here before. You might not want to be here again, but you are an ancient soul and
Yeah.
you matter. Put yourself first. Go in, ask yourself first, because you're always the last person that gives you the answer. I said to one kid, I was like, you ask three people what you should do. And he's like, yeah. And I said, who was the last person that informed your decision? And he goes, me. And I said, where at? And he goes, in my mind. And I said, in your heart? And he said, yeah. So I said, you can ask, but yourself. You have the answers. So that's what I would tell anyone on their spiritual journey. And it's and and to put yourself in the equation and know
Hmm.
that you're not alone on this planet, and this
Yeah.
planet's not alone in this solar system. So everything that you're doing, it matters to everyone else in your community and on the planet and in the cosmos.
Yeah. Oh,
Mm,
beautiful. Thank
thanks.
you.
You're welcome.
Um, how can we, do you think, become better stewards of the earth in our own lives?
I would say, and this is also very like a newer knowing for me, um, you are the earth. We are the
Mhm.
earth. We're not living on earth. We are earth. We are earth. We're air. We're fire, water. We are ether. We're the elements. We're like we are this. We are all one. That was like deep. And like I said, I'm 54, and I'm just still remembering that, and I'm forgetting that and remembering that all the time. So I would say, and then of course for me, my own personal struggle, again, I mentioned before, was my own embodiment, like feeling like I, for so long, felt I needed my father's validation to be alive and well on planet Earth. And I was like, when I realized my dad, he's passed now, the skeletons in his closet never came out. So was I going to continue to not scream for the rooftops that I am alive? I
Mhm.
am alive. I didn't need my dad to validate the fact that I am alive. So to me, embodiment, just really loving the body, and that to me is the way to go, just for me. And I think that it would be something I would share with, the youth. Like, you belong. You are
Mhm.
Earth.
Yeah. Mm, beautiful. Before you kind of let listeners know how they can connect with you and your work and support your music and upcoming projects, any like final reflections or any topics you want to share?
Well, I was just feeling that, like, maybe throughout our conversation, there might have been moments where I dropped off and left a story. That happens a lot. But I would say that last impressions, oh God, there's so many things I could say.
Mhm.
Um, First and foremost, like, one of the most important things that I have found in my lifetime is, if I can't be kind, I just stay quiet. the I was thinking about this the other day, and they're like, "Oh, you're like," people saying, "Oh, you're too nice," or "Oh, you're too kind," and I was thinking, what's wrong with that?
Yeah.
Like, wait a second. And then I'm like, well, wow, there must be something wrong with that, because we've been told, like, and I get it, and I think that's because we're not living from our heart. But I feel like it's very important for me to share that I don't just live from my heart. I live from my heart in harmony with my mind and ground it down in my body.
Mhm.
Like, I feel like there has to be the integration of all of these things, so that we're not living like too kind without boundary, or
Yeah.
living too mind without heart, and
Mhm.
being disembodied and not really believing that planet Earth is where it's at.
Yeah.
So I feel like that has been um, a message that's been ongoing in my music. Um,
Mhm.
and also, I would say that it's okay to identify. I try not to identify, but I think there is a moment where it's important to understand your mission or identify with self for a moment, so that you can, like, anchor down, hunker down, and get focused.
Yeah.
Because for many years, Jess, I didn't want to say I was this. I didn't want to say I was that because I always had the chip on my shoulder and I was always like, when I was like, when my siblings or peers were watching cartoons, I was reading books by Dennis Banks and I was reading books by Russell Means and the Black Panthers, because I had two black brothers, one with a 17-inch afro, one parted down the middle. I looked Asian. My first sister was like white with blue eyes. Like my cousins, we were all mixed bunch, right? So I grew up in a little town where everybody thought my parents owned the Asian restaurant, the Chinese restaurant. And like the first Filipino family didn't move into the neighborhood until I was 16. So like, I had people saying, are you Chinese? I'd be like, yeah, and Bruce Lee's the dad I never had, so back off. And then then once I identified as Chinese, then I was like, I started reading about the Black Irish and the Irish, and I love the Irish. And then people were like, are you Chinese? I'd be like, no, I'm Irish, so fuck off. Like it was just, I had such a chip. But
Yeah.
I was a quiet love. I was a quiet chip because I was looking, but I was
Yeah.
I was a rebel in a way. And
Yeah. Love it.
yeah, so I'd say, yeah, just put yourself in the equation and
Yeah.
just
Love that.
embrace it all. Yeah.
That's going to be the title of this episode. Put yourself in the equation with Sunny Leilani. I don't even have to think about it later. I already know.
Yay.
And so what do you have coming up? I think you have a new record coming out.
Yes, I
Yes.
do.
And how can people connect with you? And yeah, all the deets.
Okay, you got it. So I have a website, www.sunnyleilani.com. And on there, you can get to my Bandcamp, which I have four collections out that you can get to right away from Bandcamp. And they allow you to listen and stream. But then there's a period where that asks, like, you've listened like maybe 6 times now. Do you want to purchase? Now, what's interesting is I think Intergalactic Giraffe, Turtle Heart, and Joy, I think they might be name your donation, like, and I think you can even download them. Now, because I always like in the early stages of me sharing music, I always wanted my music to be a gift and I wanted people to make the choice. But when I decided to oh, that's what I was saying, like hunker down, get focused and identify with something so that you can get on track.
Yeah.
And I would never call myself a musician, but I am. I'm a bona fide
Yeah.
musician, front, back, left, right, center.
Jeez.
And I'm proud to say that, or thrilled to say that. My nephew said, "Don't be prideful." Okay, so I'm thrilled to say that. So you can, yeah, so you can go to Bandcamp, but you can listen to me on the streaming platforms. But you can go to Bandcamp, and you can access some of the music for free, donation, and then the most recent record, Ancient Love Story, it does have a fixed price of $18 or 18 shell. And
Ancient
then
love story, you say?
Ancient Love Story. It
Oh.
has two collections. Ancient Love Story is a double record. I released it at the top of 2023, and it's like I could die tomorrow because that record manifested and co-created itself with me. It's a very special record to me. It's World of Water is one collection, Heaven on Earth is the other, but the big title is Ancient Love Story. And the next record coming out, we're working on it right now in Minneapolis or Ham Lake, Minnesota. The last record was made also in Om I Productions in Ham Lake, Minnesota. Joy also is a very special record. It was made with the one and only Charnette Moffat, who's in spirit now. Amazing human being and bassist, jazz bassist, and just beautiful human. But Wisteria Dreams and Purple Ice is the upcoming record, and it should be, I'm thinking due out maybe in the next month or two, maybe three tops, because this record, it's the first record since Joy that I'm actually going to make into CD, but then also vinyl. We're pressing it in vinyl with Out of
Mm,
Wax Records in Minneapolis, South Minneapolis. And I
nice.
actually even have candles. I'm here in
Cool.
I'm here in Wheeling, West Virginia, helping my friend at a candle shop, and we've made candles. This is the scent called Wisteria Dreams, and then there's another one called In Purple Ice. So it's the two elements of this record, Wisteria Dreams and Purple Ice. And just stay
Mm.
with, if you follow me, and I could just let everyone know when the record will come out. And it's superb. It's beautiful.
Beautiful. Can you order the candles? Like, will they be available to
Yeah. They'll be available to order when the record comes out. So people can order the candle, or maybe I'll create a package where they can get both of the candles and the record. And I don't know what the shells are on that, but they're always reasonable because I believe in like a just, more fair world where, you know, things are affordable. And, you know, if you're even probably 90% of the time in my sphere, I just gift away because it's just, I'm a glutton for it. So,
You're a ray of sunshine?
oh, thank you, Jess. So are you doing?
Wow. So grateful that the sisterhood has brought us together.
Me too. Me too.
Um, Anything you want to close with? Little prayer, blessing maybe, or
You know, I have to say, I didn't forget, but my most recent iteration of spiritual journey started in 2010. Well, most recent, it began in 2010, the Spirit of Aloha. I was on my first visit to the Hawaiian Islands was Maui in 2010. Melody Gardot, the artist that I was working for, we were holding rehearsals and recording in Lahaina at my friend Lynn Peterson's studio, Lahaina Sound. And I was practicing Buddhism at the time, and I went to the local community center for the Soka Gakkai, and I actually walked into a meeting, Jess, and it was all women, and it was all women, and I believe it was in, I think it's Lahui where the, no, or maybe I can't remember the name. Oh God, Kahului, where the airport is. I can't remember. It was in that town. It's been many moons since I've been there. But all of the women and looked like they could be my auntie, my mom, my sister, my cousin, and they were like, "Sonny, you can't leave," you know. And I'm like, "I gotta go back to work." So, you know, I so in 2010 was my first real true connection to aloha. And then over the moons, aloha has just evolved, and it's speckled through all of my music. And the most recent is Aloha Ma,
yeah.
self-reflective love. So what a perfect way to end. Um, like the our conversation, because this is how we've been brought together from the self-reflective love, the spirit of
Yeah.
Aloha Ma.
Mm.
So I would say like Aloha Ma, Aloha Ma, Aloha Ma is found oh deep down inside our hearts.
Gorgeous. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. I feel so honored to be here, Jess.
Oh, I'm my all mine.
And
Thank
with
you so
Paige
much
too.
for joining. Yeah.
You're welcome. The,
She behaved
the,
herself.
she did, and she's the whole, well, one of the major inspirations of raising Sage
Yes,
Spiritual.
exactly. Okay,
There
give me
she is.
one moment.
Mwah.
Okay, and say Sunny will still be there. Say goodbye to everybody.
Bye.
Until
Bye,
next time.
everyone.